Well, hello and welcome to my office. Here we are, and I'll just jump straight into the elephant in the room here. Yeah, it's been like 3 years in the making, and it's been such a roller coaster, you could say. I would say financially, emotionally, physically. I've definitely gotten a couple of concussions while working on this thing. So the purpose of this video is that I want to share with you guys the who, the what, the where, the why, and last but not least, the how of this whole project. I think now is actually a good time for me to go ahead and introduce myself. You see, my name is Jason Clark, that is. You might have seen a little bit of what I do on my Instagram page. If you haven't already, I'll go ahead and throw it on the screen here. It's at Shifting Standards, just like the YouTube name. You see, I am a lifetime auto enthusiast. I say that because literally since the age of 4, I knew that I wanted to do stuff with cars. When I was that young, I said I want to be a car builder. Later on in life, I learned that there's a term for that called automotive engineer. You see, I also ended up learning the hard way that automotive engineers require actually staying in school after high school and not immediately jumping into the workforce. So that dream never actually became a reality, but nonetheless, I ended up getting into the automotive industry still as a salesperson for about a decade. Then that later turned into being a service advisor, and that's a whole different story in itself. But nonetheless, I got to achieve some of my dream of being in the auto industry. By the age of 5 and 6, I was already collecting Hot Wheels cars, and I was reading as much of Car and Driver and Motor Trend magazines as I possibly could, or as much as I could possibly understand with my, of course, like age-limited vocabulary at the time. Anyway, I digress. Later on in life, I was about 13 years of age, and that's when I decided I really like Audis a lot. And from there, I had a dream of having an S4, a B8 S4, because that was like the new one of the time, and I really loved it. The LED lights got me, the R8, like advertisements really captured me as well. So I really wanted a B8 S4. That was the car that I was like absolutely in love with, apart from like, let's say a McLaren F1. So anyway, a realistic goal, I would say, for my adulthood eventually. Funny enough, that never happened. I never ended up getting a B8 S4 because as I shifted into later years of life and kind of passed through a number of other vehicles and platforms, I ended up discovering that I really have a liking towards just naturally aspirated engines in vehicles. So yeah, my love for Audi still remained, but I just ended up loving naturally aspirated Audis. And then that's where at least to me, the king of naturally aspirated Audis came to mind. That was the B7 Audi RS4. After owning a B8 S5 with the 4.2 liter V8, I loved that car a whole lot, and I was like, okay, well, the only thing that could be better than this to me would be a B7 RS4. It's kind of like that, but with like a little bit more RS oomph thrown into it. So yeah, my dream car became the B7 RS4, and that has not changed, and I think that will remain for like probably the rest of my life. So now that you guys know me a little better, let's go ahead and talk about the subject matter of this video, and that is the Audi RS4. For those who don't know what an Audi RS4 is, it's considered the highest step up the ladder from the Audi A4. It goes A4, S4, RS4. We only had RS4s in the United States for the model years 2007 and 2008. Only about 2,000 of them existed here in the States, and it shouldn't be confused with the S4 because the RS4 had direct injection and a number of other significant changes to the engine that helped it reach a power output of 420 horsepower as well as a red line of 8,250 RPM. If those numbers sound familiar to you, it's because you saw them on the Audi R8 when it first came out. Other changes to the RS4 that set it apart from the S4 are going to be the wide body. Yes, the fenders and quarter panels are a little bit wider, and then it has dynamic ride control or DRC suspension, which in layman's terms is an active suspension design that helps reduce body roll. And then it has 8-piston Brembo brake calipers in the front. Those calipers can be found on the R8 again, but on top of that, they can be found on the Lamborghini Gallardo, which is pretty cool. Another Lamborghini Gallardo feature that we didn't get here in the United States was the flat-bottom steering wheel, and then the Recaro wingback seats. Since I was talking about Lamborghinis, I should bring up these two very important vehicles for the story of my car.
They are the C6 generation Audi S6 and the D3 generation Audi S8 because they featured a 5.2 liter V10 engine. And at the time, every magazine article and journalist was raving about how these cars had a Lamborghini engine. Yes, the Lamborghini Gallardo at the time did have a 5.2 liter V10 engine, and there were significant financial ties between Audi and Lamborghini at the time. However, I am going to tell you guys it is not the same engine. They do share similarities, but there's a reason why owners of Lamborghini Gallardos are not resorting to Audi S6 engines whenever they have engine failures in their cars. It just would not work. There's way too many changes between the two engines. It is not just a detuned Gallardo motor. It might seem like I was a little bit harsh on the S6 and the S8 just now, and that's not my intention, because those are actually very fascinating and rare cars that should be respected. In fact, I have a little bit of a personal story with the S6. It was my 13th birthday, so my frontal lobe was finally developing and realizing that V10s didn't only belong in the Dodge Viper, for example, and my dad had a colleague who took us out for a spin in his new, at the time, which is a really big deal, Audi S6 with the V10, and I was definitely enamored by that car. That was really cool. For many years after that experience, I did have to wonder though, what if Audi placed this engine in a smaller and lighter chassis and also offered it with a manual transmission? What makes those concerns so valid is that you have to keep in mind the S6 and S8 were 4,500 or more pound executive sedans. So you really didn't get to see the performance that you think of when you hear V10 out of those cars. Well, it turns out Audi and Lamborghini actually know this already. That option does actually exist, but it requires purchasing a Lamborghini Gallardo or a Huracan or an R8. And if you're anything like me, chances are those options are completely out of financial reach. So that's all of the background info on the B7 Audi RS4 and the 5.2 liter V10 from the D3 generation S8 and the C6 generation S6. Stick around and I'll go ahead and explain to you what ties the two together for the project that I'm introducing to you now.
It did originally have the V8 and I had plenty of fun with it. Too much fun because eventually that V8 spun a couple of rod bearings and went kaboom. Not literally. I was actually driving like normally for once at the moment that the engine actually blew up. So I got the engine on Facebook Marketplace. There was a guy in Illinois who he had a 5.2 liter V10 and it was from an Audi S8 that apparently was crashed. The owner of that car crashed it into a tree, I guess. And this actually tracks on the Carfax too. Kind of funny. He crashed it into a tree, and then I guess maybe that person didn't have it insured or something, and it was still attached to an auto loan. So it got repossessed after it crashed into a tree. And then it ended up at this guy's shop, and the guy was like, look, I don't work on Audis. I don't know what to do with any of this. So I am selling this engine. He had like compression test videos of like, I don't know, 7 cylinders, and then he said his compression tester like just stopped working after those 7. Me being young, dumb, and stupid, I still went for it. Got a U-Haul truck with my buddy Eddie, who was a very, very strong negotiator for this engine, and met the guy at a Walmart in Ohio because he was willing to kind of like help me out with not having to drive all the way out to Illinois from Virginia. And yeah, picked up the engine. It was a very like quick, smooth transaction, and before I knew it, I was in a Dodge Ram truck from a dealership that I was working at the time, and I was trailering back a V10 that I picked up for $1,700, less than, well, what's the math on that? Well, less than 1/6 of the cost of a replacement used engine for this car right here. Where? Well, yeah, it's a good point. We are in my garage here. In fact, I'll give you a quick little walk around ski. So yeah, welcome to my garage. I probably should have done a little bit of organizing before filming this right now, because it's like a total disaster out here. This is not some sort of like fancy shop. I don't have a lift. I've got a jack here that has been like handed down to a friend and then handed down to me. Shout out to my buddy Dwayne. Hope he's doing well. My quote-unquote toolbox. Yeah, you know, it's got tools. It's got tools. I mean, you know, yeah, box of wiring stuff. Well, I acquired this car in, why am I acting like I have to think hard about it? It was April 15th, 2022, and I got it to blow up by, I want to say it was August 16th, 2022. So months into it, but man, let me tell you, those were like some of the best months of my life. It was a blast I had with this bad boy right here. That was long live the V8. I had no knocks against it. It was marvelous until its last day.
As a side note, even though the majority of the groundbreaking parts of this project take place here at home, I've been fortunate enough to have friends in Arlington, Virginia, Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, and another part of Woodbridge, Virginia, who have been able to lend me a helping hand, as well as some shop space for some of the more foundational parts of this build. I do highly preach that anyone can do this, and that's a huge part of me sharing this with you all, but a very important part about getting far as a novice, like myself, is knowing when to ask for help. As the story unfolds, I'll be introducing some of these friends and shop owners to you guys. I'd say it's the least I can do to continue thanking them.
This all started because, well, my engine blew up, and a replacement at the time was, I want to say used ones were going on eBay for about $12,000. But let's just say I was not in a position to do that, and I probably was not even in the position to have a Mazzano Red V7 Audi RS4 in the first place. You all probably know them very well by now. That's the legendary Mr. Martin Harp, aka Harp Attack. And then we've got Mr. Joel Francisco, aka RS6 Jolio. I, back in 2022, and even a couple years prior to that, spent so much time watching their videos and their footage, and I was so fascinated by the fact that they managed to make use of one of my favorite Audi engines, and they put it into cars that originally came with manual gearboxes, and that really uncorked the awesomeness of that motor. They definitely kind of, you know, made a light bulb pop up above my head. Well, that light bulb became LED when they swapped over the timing cover from an RS4's V8 and just plugged one of the holes. And that got me thinking, I'm like, I have an RS4 with a blown engine, but I have an RS4. That means I have an RS4 timing cover. And literally after that, I didn't really care about anything else. I knew for sure that I was gonna make this project happen. Yeah, I wasn't concerned about, I was concerned, but I pushed those concerns aside because I was like, you know what, this is just gonna work. No matter what, I'm gonna make it happen. I have an RS4 timing cover, and I have a manual gearbox already. I was actually watching this stuff before I even owned this car. So I don't know, it was almost like meant to be that like I just needed to blow up my favorite Audi and have an excuse to throw a V10 in it. Anyway, my goal is to be quicker than the V8, or at least just as quick as the V8. Like if you want more power, just make the engine bigger, I don't know. This is like a Dodge Charger with Quattro. Okay, that's really disrespectful. Sorry. JHM, they're well known for tuning the V8 and V10 naturally aspirated Audi vehicles. Based on some footage that they put out on a C6 S6 that they put headers on and tuned, they actually gained a lot of power. Which may be possible considering that a C6 S6 and D3 S8 uses a very strange exhaust manifold design. Those cars use a 5 to 3 to 2 to 1 exhaust manifold design. Those cars come with 6 catalytic converters from the factory. Who knows, maybe there's a lot of restrictive action happening there. The power output rated in the S6 was 435, so 15 more horsepower than the V8, and in the S8, it's 450. I think there's a lot more headroom to work with that motor. It's not working as hard to produce that 450 or 435 as the RS4 is working to produce its 420. It's still going to be an NA manual car, and you'll be surprised by how similar the V8 and the V10 are as far as like design goes. It really is just kind of like the V8, just with 2 more cylinders added. And as far as like the character of the car goes, a lot of people might be concerned about like how much weight might be gained going with the V10. So I know this sounds crazy, but it's only about 20 pounds more of weight going into the V10 compared to the V8. Like, people are just like, no, there's no way, that it's a V10, it's gotta be heavy. It's not like I'm like taking a 4-cylinder out of this car here, you know? Like this, like, I'm swapping a V10 into a car that had a V8. Like, I'm not getting rid of a lightweight engine to put this one in. I think it's going to be a little bit closer to being just an Audi 4-door supercar. Manual gearbox, big engine. I'll make sure it screams pretty loudly.
Up to this point, I've answered who, what, where, when, and why. In order to find out how, well, that's something you'll just have to see in upcoming videos. I'm hoping you guys enjoyed this one, and if so, please feel free to subscribe. I hope to see you around for the next one. Let me know in the comment section if you have any questions about this swap. There's a lot of info I tried to mash together in a short period of time. To be frank with you all, this is my first ever YouTube video, and it took a lot more time than I thought it would. Mainly because I have absolutely no clue what I'm doing. But anyway, if you could share this with any friends or family who would be interested in watching a cool car build unfold, I'd really appreciate it. And until then, keep shifting.